We started a little bit late. I'm gonna actually, before I get into anything, I'm gonna make sure we're actually connected. Okay, good. Yes. Okay, great. Here we are. Thank you all so much for waiting. I decided at the last second I wanted to get a better view of the doggo, and I had an idea. I needed to go find a box, and I found one. So here we are. Very comfortable doggo view. Hanging out on her own blanket. Looking at me. Hi, baby. You look so cozy. She'll probably wander around and like go climb on top of a pillow in a moment, but hopefully the 4-minute wait was worth it. I apologize. I try very hard to start on time, exactly on time. I don't always achieve that because technology happens, stream things happen. I feel like I'm very on time compared to most people that do live streams. Everyone else I watch that live streams, they start like 15 minutes late, an hour late. They like change the stream time. I'm pretty on the ball, okay? I'm pretty on the ball most of the time. Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting. There's like a weird overhead light that's like right here, and I have it on when I'm working on my computer, and I hate it for streaming. I feel like I'm in a changing room. Like when I have a light directly over my head like that. I think I also figured out what I want to do for here. I'm going to get one of those, I guess like a room divider, or like I think of them as like a one of those like lattice. You see them all the times actually in like bondage studios will use them. I think I can get one that's pretty much about like this big, and I'm gonna decorate it and put like flowers on it and lights and stuff, and it'll be cute and pretty and delightful. I like don't know how I'm gonna store it. That is TBD. But anyways, I have ideas. Everything is cool waiting for Bandita. I have so many things I am working on right now. I am like so excited to share them with you all. I like don't even know like how to like I have like 15. I'm not just like I don't have like every burner going on my stovetop. I have like I brought in a microwave, a blender, a second stove, a griddle, an outdoor grill. I got pots everywhere, baby. I got everything everywhere. I have irons in every fire. I got lots going on. So I hope that you all eventually appreciate when everything's coming out, because it's a lot of coordinating with people. And I mean, I had like a real job at one point in time, right? Like I worked for a company, I had coworkers, but it's very different when you're trying to coordinate things with like a bunch of people that are not part of a company, that are just like all doing their own thing and have their own schedule. See, what did I tell you? She's going to make a nest on Blanket Mountain, as I predicted. This is what she does. This is her favorite thing on earth, is whatever the tallest. She's probably gonna bite a corner and like try to pull it in a certain direction as well. Yeah, there she goes. Oh, my little princess on the pea. Oh, goodness. It's so entertaining to me. I hope it's entertaining to you all. This is like my favorite hobby. She hasn't bitten anything yet. Normally she bites it and like pulls on it a little bit. It's very adorable. She's so tough. It's all good. Yeah, it's Bendita. I know. Oh, I know. I said it. It's okay, honey. I have to be very careful when she's making a bed, because if I talk to her, she'll stop. And she'll forget what she's doing. And she'll go off and do something else. There we go. Now we're all cozy. Very good. Oh, so good. And get some honks in there. All right, we're all settled. We're settled. Okay, so I lied. We're not doing a date night get ready with me anymore, because my date got canceled because people are sick. I guess I'll just say that. I don't know if that's so not doing a get ready with me. Sorry to disappoint. I'm gonna have to change the title here because I don't wanna bait anyone to thinking something else is gonna happen. I'll just stick with that for now. I mean, who knows where the topics are going to end up for tonight anyhow. Everything ends up going everywhere. In any case, well, with that being said, hi everyone, welcome. We are here for a Friday night live stream. This is an interactive viewer current Q&A. So what y'all can do is you can leave a question in the chat, and then eventually I will probably likely answer it. I go in the order that chats come in. This is an 18 plus only stream as well, so if you are not at least 18, please do not be here. That is for everyone's safety, my safety, your safety, everyone's safety. Just don't really want to be mixing minors and the conversations we're going to be having with adults. Not recommended, not a good time. Also, please read the rules down below. They're pretty simple, nothing to worry about. Basically, don't spam the chat, be respectful, listen to the mods, and I mean, that's really it, basically. And then, if I don't get to your question, I recommend waiting. I will give people a chance at the very end of the stream. Usually, if I catch myself, I'll give everyone like 10 to 20 minutes just to be able to put in their last minute questions. And if you want to make sure I answer your question right away, you can do that through a super chat or through Streamlabs. Link to those are down below, or you can do it directly through a chat on YouTube, and that's more or less what you need to know. And yeah, that's it. Oh, and then I don't give mental or medical health advice. So if you're like, I got choked last night and now my vision is blurry, should I be worried? I'm going to be like, I don't know, sounds like you should talk to a doctor. Or if you're like, my partner I just met, or my maybe future partner I just met on a dating app says that they have schizoaffective disorder. Is it safe to do BDSM with them? I'm going to be like, I don't know, you should probably talk to a mental health provider. Now, when it comes to things like, you know, dealing with feelings and vulnerability, if it's like, you know, processing an emotion, I feel equipped to handle that, because that's like, to me, that's like more of a life skill. It's not even really like a therapy thing, but a lot of things I do talk about and that I will recommend oftentimes have a basis in therapy, because therapeutic terminology and methods are oftentimes very good for dealing with things like jealousy, guilt, shame, learning how to do humiliation more effectively, so on and so forth. So there's applications of that I'm comfortable with, but on the whole, I can't really tell you if something's like safe, healthy, recommended by your dentist. I don't know. You gotta talk to those people first. Although I am curious for people that maybe are here just inadvertently, in case anyone here maybe would know, I do wonder if there is any concern about like certain kink things and like teeth health, for example, because I was reading something earlier today where somebody was talking about how they had a tongue piercing and how it chipped a lot of their teeth. And like, I don't have a tongue piercing. I've like considered getting one before, but I haven't, because I do YouTube for a job and I don't know how long my tongue would be swollen for. And I'm pretty sure people would leave comments about being able to see the bar length when it's still healing, and it just wasn't worth it to deal with it. But I'm like, wow, I mean, like, if a tiny little, like, metal piercing in your tongue can chip your teeth, like, I've seen people, like, I was just at Kink Fest at the beginning / well, I guess end of March, more accurately, and I saw someone there that was selling stone gags, and I was like, I mean, talk about risk-aware kink. They did say on their Instagram page that they recommend it for, like, show only for photo shoots, not for play. But, like, when you're selling something pretty at a convention with, like, a dungeon that's open pretty much the whole day, like, you gotta realize the people who buy your stuff, without giving them a disclaimer, are gonna, like, wander off, go use that shit in the dungeon, not for a photo shoot. So I'm like, that kind of sounds like we're saying something just to cover our butts, but, like, we're okay with that. I'm like, I feel like that's something we should be more worried about. I don't know. That, and I've heard a lot of people say as well, this is like things I'm researching, and I'm like, how true is this? I don't know. I've heard people say stuff about you have to be careful doing impact play over the chest, because they're worried it could lead to an increased risk of cancer, but the studies that people are taking that information from seem to be from research on seatbelts and like injuries from like a seatbelt like being restraining and like activating during like a car crash. I'm like not sure that's a one-to-one correlation there, but I'm like, why would that happen just for that kind of tissue, but like not for like regular spanking? Like why is that different? I don't know. Like why are we like worried about this one area but not others? I don't know. Never heard of that before. What's rainbow play? I have no idea. I've never heard of rainbow play before. Yeah, they're like to be clear when I say they were like they look like crystal, like you're I mean like what do you think of when you think of crystal online, right? Like rose quartz, jade, I don't know, probably labradorite, that kind of thing. I don't actually know how many of them are actually real or like dyed quartz or what. I'm not a stone person. I don't like care about crystals all too much. They're interesting, they're pretty. I think it's a novel idea. I think kind of regardless though, whether it's like a literal actual rock or like a polished like round piece of, to be clear, they're like polished, round, polished, but still like solid crystal or stone or something. That kind of just seems like that has to be like not a very good idea. Like there's a reason why we didn't do that usually for gags. There's a reason why like silicone is like the most popular thing for gags these days, or rubber at least. But yeah. I've never heard. I mean, I've heard Roman showers before. I've never heard of. I mean, I guess that seems like. I mean, I feel like Google just thinks it's about. Oh, rainbow sports. Oh, Urban Dictionary says it's a thing. There is a Wikipedia entry. It says Rainbow Party. Oh, it's based on a it's based on a myth, like an early aughts myth that's very funny. I That has nothing to do with the thing we're talking about though. I feel like I can see that being used on like a pro-dom website. I've never heard of it before. I've usually heard Roman shower, not rainbow shower. But then again, it's like not that common of a type of play to begin with, so that's probably why I am not familiar with it. Like it's one of those things that I'm sure somebody does, but like you can't do that in a dungeon. I mean, at least not most of them. You can't do it in like a public play space. Like it's also you got to put a lot of work in to achieve that. There's some you don't just show up with a flogger and go, all right, time for rainbow play. Like you can't just there's like usually you got to have more forethought than that. I'm assuming rainbow sherbet would be the way. Fruity pebbles, probably that too. I guess I mean it is more cutesy if you call it rainbow play because it to me that brings to mind like a mid-aughts like unicorn vomiting a rainbow like MySpace type thing. I thought that was like a Technicolor yawn. Maybe that's a different way of talking about it. I think it's a reference to the fact that it can be any color. Oh, that would make more sense, I guess. Call it Skittle play. I heard the term at a Kink convention I went to during their dungeon intro explaining it wasn't allowed. Wait, you mean they weren't allowed to explain what it was? That's okay. I mean, it's just play involving vomit, usually vomiting on someone else. Like, it's not really, like, done enough for there to be any kind of, like, deeper level of thing. Like, it's like toilet play, you know? Like, is that a thing pro-doms do? Yeah. Is it popular with pro-doms? Some of them, yeah. But it's not something you really see as, like, I don't know. There's, like, certain kinks that people are, like, open to explore. And, like, as you go through your kink journey, you're going to see them. You're going to, like, watch demos. You're going to get curious about them, maybe. And that could include a lot of stuff, right? That could even include like blood play, fire play, needle play, cupping, all different kinds of role play. And like that's like in the generally acceptable wheelhouse of kinks that you'll see people do. But for some reason, when it comes to like things involving bodily functions especially, and well, I guess maybe saliva being the exception there, like you don't really see people do that. Or also, at least in the straight BDSM community, you don't really see a lot of people doing, how do I say this in a YouTube friendly way, enhanced size exploration thinking of this one word at a time exploration of an orifice, right? So like something involving two hands, you know, right? Or a very particularly girthy object. You don't really see a lot of that either, at least in the straight BDSM community. Those tend to be activities that are more reserved for the pro-dom side of things. And I find it very interesting that like people are like open to like exploring like some pretty extreme stuff, right? Like drinking blood, face slapping, choking to the point of passing out, water sports, waterboarding. But there's like a line where people are like, oh no, but not that though. I'm okay. People are like, I'm okay drinking Robitussin and then having my boyfriend choke me until I pass out. But it's like the community meme, right? But I draw the line at this. And it's funny that there's like, I'm like, how are we as a kink community really going to say that like this one thing is fine, but this other thing is totally beyond the pale? I find that so fascinating as a thing because to the outside world, as we've discussed many a time here on this channel, we're all kind of freaky weirdos. Like, the degree to which the vanilla world like has the ability to absorb what we do and distinguish it as being weird in an important different way compared to the other things that we do is like somewhat limited. Like basically as soon as you get to like the point of like pretending to be a dog and barking on the floor, they're like, that's way too fucking weird for me. Like I can't handle this. Like you get a diaper out, they're gonna be like, whoa, what's happening? Like anything past that point is just equally bizarre. They don't understand that there's like a meaningful distinction within the community between like, oh, I'm somebody who does like water sports and like somebody who does like hook pulls or rainbow play or something like that, right? I actually should remember, I'm working on a yes, no, maybe checklist. Oh, do I have room? I thought I was done. See, this is why I haven't published it yet, because I know I'm going to run into things where I'm like, oh, fuck, I got to put that in there. Okay, note to self, after stream, see if I can shove in rainbow play somewhere in my yes, no, maybe checklist. I don't know if I have room for it at this point, but we're gonna try our best here. Saw a talk by Lee Harrington called Dark Role Playing about those kinds of things in kink. Yes, absolutely. Lee Harrington is amazing on that. I have probably even, if not seen that as a presentation, I have watched the class version of that. I think it was age play focused in particular, or maybe it was a general dark. I remember the age play part in particular, but it could have also been a general like dark role play talk. Lee's great for that. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. But it's just funny that there's like lines of like, well, like we're okay doing like caregiver incest role play, but like we draw the line at like fake animal experimentation. That's too far. Like it's like, wait, what? It's very, very silly, honestly. Honestly, whatever works for you. If you and those involved are in your scene are consenting adults, it's their choice. I don't really care. Just don't have people. Yeah, exactly. Don't have anyone unaliving themselves or like having any sort of wasted GTA moments IRL, I suppose. I'm just trying to be cautious with my language on YouTube, just experimenting, see how that goes for me. But yeah, I think that's, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I don't really care, right? I think, and we even taught on this last time a little bit too, right? I think genuinely there should not be any judgment whatsoever on the level of kink that you do. Whether it's like browsing stuff, more fantasy based, you know, not really participating, but like imagining it, just keeping it in your head, to more like soft play, right? Beginner friendly play, you know, wearing a collar, you know, light sensory play, maybe more medium level play, all the way over to like the really hardcore stuff. I think all of it is equally valid. It is equally able to be enjoyed. I think there can be a pressure to like escalate to the really intense stuff because frankly it's popular, it gets you attention, it can help set you apart from other people, whether you're a sub or a dom or a topper, or bottom or switcher, whatever. If you're like the person who does the intense play, you're seen as like a better, more experienced player than somebody who does maybe like less intense or more common types of play when they're in the dungeon. And that's real hard. It's hard to fight against that. It's hard to check in and really be like, hey, do I like actually want to do this really hardcore stuff because it's more fun to me than other things are? Or am I doing it because my partner wants to do it? Or because they feel pressured to do it? Or because I've been in the community for this length of time and I'm not like to that level yet and that makes me feel like inferior in some way. But all of it's totally valid and fine. As long as you're following the rules of the space you're in, respecting consent, you know, doing all the risk aware things and like actually being risk aware. I think a lot of people, I don't think any system is perfect. I think whether you're looking at SSE, rack, whatever term you like to use, all of them have their benefits. All of them have their downsides. I think that if you are looking for one of those that's going to be like a perfect explainer for like your level of kink, you're probably not going to find it. But with like rack, for example, I have noticed there can be a tendency for some people who use it as like a way like to, how do I phrase this? Like it can be sort of seen as a way to like brush off like intense like negative side effects, even if they weren't actually like, in order to be risk aware, you have to be aware of the risks that are involved in the kinds of play that you're doing. So if you don't know what the risks actually are and you're just being like, yeah, let's do it anyways, whatever, who cares, like I'm like, I don't really know if that's like risk aware. I don't know if that like, if that counts. Like if you're doing like, let's just, this is not a real example, but let's just like say that for some reason somebody didn't know this. Like if somebody was engaging in breath play and they didn't know that one of the risks of engaging in choking was passing out and then potentially like going limp and hitting your head, like we wouldn't say that the person was like risk aware for just saying that like, oh, breath control is dangerous and then just like going off and doing it because they didn't really understand exactly everything they were getting into. But I think that's like one of the things that's really interesting about kink terminology and language is you can use these terms as a guidepost, but they don't necessarily like fully explain everything, and there's kind of a subjective way of looking at them, right? Like what does it really mean to be risk aware? Like what does it mean to practice being a risk aware kinkster? And like what does it mean if you don't do that? Like what does it mean if you say you're practicing SSC or rack or what have you, but then in the play you're actually doing something goes wrong or something happens or you don't actually follow those guidelines and then like things go sideways. Like, okay, like what do you do with that information? Nothing? I don't know, probably. Like what is there to do with it really? I really thought when I got into a kinky relationship, I thought I'd be doing heavy kink all the time. And nah, we do a ton of sensation play and save, I'm assuming it means save the heavy stuff for once in a while. It's fun. Yes, I am very much in the same boat. I consider myself to be someone that enjoys like some like more intense kink activities. Absolutely. But I find that I enjoy them more when things are not routine, like especially like more intense stuff. I like that there's like an anticipation and excitement of like, ooh, I finally get to do this thing again. I like to save bigger stuff for like conventions or travel rather than having it be really routine. And there's things that I will like pretty much always enjoy no matter how frequent they are, like sensation play, like pet play, like bondage. And now like, sure, every weekend that would be perfectly fine with me. That would be amazing. But some play, I like, there's something about it when you save it for like a special moment, like let's say like being in bondage and being like walked around blindfolded at a convention. That's like way more enjoyable to me and special when it's at a convention versus like doing it at a local dungeon when like there's 20 people there. You know, there's like, I think it's okay to put some things on the shelf for later and have it be like, oh, that's like that's like the good snack we bring out when we have like special guests over. That's not for us to eat on a regular weekday basis. That's saved for a special occasion. Yeah, I also saved the big intense stuff. Or nerve damage from rope play, like you said before. Yes, the nerve thing is a really big one. I have a video, and this is like why breath play is kind of on my brain a little bit this time. I'm working on a video where I talk about a new study that was done on like the brain, like neurobiological ramifications of engaging in choking repeatedly. And it's one of the first studies I know of that kind that's been done. Usually the data and stuff that we know about choking comes from like DV stuff, which is like more like typically fatal, presents differently, you know, done to a different extent, and obviously not done consensually or with awareness. And as part of my research for that, one of the things I also talk about in there as a comparison point is the way that we talk about nerve damage in rope bondage, because we tend to talk about things as being very acute risks. You know, oh, the risk for this thing is this one like bad event happening during the scene itself, right? Like one of the risks of rope bondage and getting nerve damage is you know, put rope somewhere, you end up like causing a nerve injury, and then you get wrist drop, right? And it's a very like A happens and then B happens, and it's very immediate, and it's because of one discrete event happening. Whereas in reality, there's also a secondary risk, not of just immediate acute injury, but something that comes from the cumulative risk of doing something repeatedly over and over and over again. Like you might be able to do the same time, the same place, 5, 10, 20, 100 times, you know, for years and be totally fine. But there is a 101st time where maybe something goes wrong or you get a nerve injury. And we don't really know, because we don't have resources, how much is it that your number came up because, oh, you're just unlucky this time and it happened, versus was your risk increased because you were causing some kind of cumulative damage from a repetition happening of like this nerve being compressed over and over and over again, and maybe it wasn't getting irritated enough in an acute fashion to cause an injury right then, but maybe just doing it so many times led to the injury. But we don't really know. We don't have any research about that. So we tend to talk about, even when there are times where people are informed about nerve damage, we tend to focus on that very acute, you know, when you're in the scene, you know, check somebody's reflexes and see if they can do whatever with their hands, and, you know, if they're cold or what, like all the things that, you know, people talk about for checking like nerve versus compression stuff, or how compression stuff can conceal nerve stuff. But it's all very focused on the right then and there. I have yet to take a rope bondage class, and I don't know how much this is the case, because the rope bondage classes I'm taking tend to be like learn how to do this pattern, not necessarily like beginner learn all the things type classes. But I haven't really seen presenters talk about that risk of a cumulative effect versus something that is just a one-off acute injury. But like, it wouldn't be surprising to me if something like that were the case. And I don't think it should be surprising for that to be the case. Because naturally, like,
Nathan donated $10. Any advice on staying
like,
focused positive in terms of dating, relating when confronted with those that seem more, better,
you
harder,
get tennis
faster,
elbow from wearing
cuter,
out your
stronger,
elbow or whatever,
and so
doing
on.
whatever repetitive
Hooray
thing
for
that
bandage
happens
treats.
to cause the injury, or at least the irritation, perhaps. Yeah. Any advice on staying focused positively in terms of dating, relating when confronted with those that seem more, better, harder, faster, cuter, stronger, and so on? Hooray for bandit treats. Yes. Thank you, Nathan. Great question. Great question. That would be a cool study to do. I will say that I'm really hopeful that we will get some better studies about this stuff, because there's so much we don't know. Like, as an educator, I really want to know what those risks are for like a cumulative versus a repetitive versus an acute injury, right? You know, do you injure something only doing it once, or by doing it 100 times, right? Is there a difference there? Are the injuries different in some way as well, too? Because that's another factor. But I'm not a medical provider, so maybe I'm phrasing that incorrectly, but that's what my brain is noodling on. But to get to Nathan's question about staying positive when you're confronted by people that are like, they seem like superior to you. I know a lot of the more blasé advice about this would be like, realize that you are a unique individual and that no one else is like you and that you are a special snowflake. Because, like, I know when I was in elementary school, that was, like, the messaging that we got. There was, like, literally a song that we would make fun of. And I wonder if anyone else here, like, went to a school that had this. But it was essentially, I remember, the main line of the chorus being, like, I'm an okay me to be. Something to that effect, where it was like, everyone's special. Everyone's their own unique little star in the sky. And don't compare yourself to anybody else. Like, I think it's reasonable when you are in kink, and let's say you're a dominant person, and you're watching other people, like, have all these partners and play with people more often and do these, like, really intense scenes, especially if you're somebody that has, like, a disability or you're neurodivergent or whatever, and it's, like, harder for you to, like, go to parties and be in that environment comfortably. Like, yeah, you're gonna feel, like, jealous, or maybe more accurately, envious of somebody that is, getting to do something you don't get to do. Oh, wait. I haven't. Speaking of envy. Y'all knew. It's been, I haven't pulled out the, who needs tarot when you can have DBT cards? Not to add the DBT people. Or the tarot people, for that matter. But I just think these are my versions of tarot cards. Alright, let's talk about... Is there one for envy in here? I know there's not one for jealousy, because I know I've looked for it before. There's one for procrastination, though, which is funny. They're like, listen, we know your ass is looking at these because you're... jealousy, build experience. Oh, it might not be in here. Okay, let me Google something real quick. Alright, give me one moment here. By the way, one of the things I'm working on, I'm getting my own Jeopardy theme to play if there's a moment where I have to stop and Google something, or if I'm looking for something. So look forward to that in the future, as opposed to just my silence and staring. Alright, I think the wrong thing to do when it comes to any, like, intense negative emotion is to be like, I shouldn't feel that way. It's wrong or bad to feel this way. I don't feel like that ever, like, actually has any sort of, like, productive long-term impact. I think it just tends to, like, bring out bad stuff. All right, so I do think... So there is one thing. So I will say that, like, it's okay to accept envy. I think one of the things that people will recommend, though, is, like, thought reframing. This is, like, a common, like, not a DBT, but it's a basis in, like, CBT, right? People will say, okay, you can have cognitive interpretations that are elevating your thoughts, and you can reframe them to, like, hopefully not create or elevate the emotion as much, right? Like, if you have a belief that, like, I never get to play with anyone, and other people are always playing so much more than I get to. You could reframe that and give an alternate explanation for your feeling that maybe would say something along the lines of, I don't really know what's going on with them, and I don't really know if they're actually having a fun time or not. Because just because somebody's playing a lot doesn't really mean they're having a fun time or connecting with people. Like, you never know on the surface what somebody's actually genuinely experiencing. So I'm going to say, in this scenario, knowing you, Nathan, I'm going to say that, like, envy is a justified emotion. I don't think that you need to necessarily do an opposite action. I think it's fair to, like, be somebody who's working towards something and then not being able to obtain it, but other people are having it. What I would do in that case is, for example, recommend, like, working harder to get to where other people have things, right? Pushing yourself to go to more social events if that feels accessible to you. Going to more parties, introducing yourself to more people, maybe finding a different way to meet people, maybe not just FetLife, maybe you join Field, or you go on the Bloom community app, or you try some other way of, like, contacting and integrating with people. Work on like self-improvement and like improving your life circumstances insofar as that's actually possible. And then fighting for like equality and inclusion, because I know a lot of spaces are not really that inclusive, especially, you know, kind of going back to what I was talking about. If you have a disability, if you're neurodivergent, if you're in a wheelchair or something, right? Not all spaces are going to be accessible to all people, but you can advocate to create scenarios that make it so you are able to access spaces. So that's that on that. And then when envy is unjustified, just to like talk through this, and maybe, or maybe even it is justified, but maybe it's not necessarily productive to act on it. Think about doing opposite actions, right? So like expressing gratitude for the things that you do have in your life, expressing gratitude for like past experiences, things you have been able to do, not exaggerating other people. Like, this is what I was talking about with, you know, realizing you don't really understand what's going on in somebody's life. So just because it might seem, oh my gosh, they're playing with all these hot people all the time, they're doing this and I can't do any of it. You don't even know what's going on with their life. Maybe they only play these parties. Maybe they secretly hate their partner. You just don't know about it. Maybe they, you know, do these scenes, but it's only really because they're like coping with like some really severe mental health issues. Or maybe they have tons of conflict and like kink is a way that they try to resolve that, but the relationship really isn't that steady. Like, there could be lots of reasons why like these things that you're seeing are not the full story, and it doesn't mean that they're better. And as I've been saying, right, doing more intense play, doing play with more people, playing more frequently doesn't actually make you a better kinkster or not. It just is a different way of being into kink. And then like the last thing I would probably do on top of that is, I don't know how to phrase this exactly. This isn't really like a DBT thing, but this is something that I find helpful if I'm feeling in this way of, rather than thinking about it as like a zero-sum game, because I think envy to some extent is predicated on this other person has something I don't have, and that makes me feel bad because it somehow makes it feel like you're not meeting a standard, or you're less likely to obtain that thing because somebody else is taking it up for themselves. And that's not really true, right? Like, I can, I guess compersion maybe be the word for it, is instead of being in the envy space of like, I wish I had that, like, by cultivating happiness in the community, by cultivating this sense of I'm happy that you're happy and I'm glad that you get to do these things, that focuses on the connection aspect of interaction as opposed to separation. Because like envy, I think, is a way of like separating yourself from other people and emphasizing the sense of difference of like, you have what I don't have, I'm here, you're here, like how distant and far away we are from each other. Whereas like compassion, compersion, joy for somebody else's joy, hoping and wishing for them that they are having the best scene they want to have, that brings you together and that draws you into community. And I think that that is like, I guess, I mean, again, I'm not a mental health provider. Maybe there's some kind of reason why like that isn't one of the big points of, I mean, compersion isn't really like a word that gets used in like proper like mental health stuff. As far as I know, it's not really a language that mainstream mental health people seem to use, but I feel like it's a good, like, focusing on like wanting what's best for other people as opposed to being jealous they have something you don't. I mean, but like the thing about all of DBT is like it's very situational, right? So like if you're envious that somebody else has a sandwich because you're really fucking hungry, like being happy for them they have a sandwich isn't going to get rid of your own hunger. So like that's when we get into like working harder, you know, trying to fight for fairness, etc., emphasizing that portion of things, not being like, well, it's not fair for me to feel envious of their sandwich because that's not right. So instead, I'm just going to simply be happy for them because that doesn't really solve the underlying problem, right? That doesn't actually, that's not productive, I would say. But it's very subjective. But that's like how I stay positive is I try to create a mental like loop for myself. Like, to take this out of a kink example, something that I've like actually done this with is like road rage stuff. I not that I was like, I've never really been a road rage person. Like, that's not my thing. But I know when I drove with other people, it would make me feel bad if I was in the car with them and then they would like get like really angry at somebody that they were on the road with, right? Like, they would start yelling at somebody, they'd start cussing them out, they'd be like, oh my God, that person's so inconsiderate, they're so rude, how dare they, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, but you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what's, so, somebody's giving birth in the back of that car. You know what's going on there. So I saw that I didn't like somebody else's behavior. And I was like, well, I also want to make sure I'm not doing that either because it isn't in line with my values. So I started to practice whenever I would see someone do something that was like frustrating to me, right? Like if I'm driving at night and somebody's got like really big bright truck lights on, those big old new LEDs they put in every new Dodge, Ram, Ford truck that are like 50 times brighter than they need to be. Instead of being like, oh, I hate that they bought that big truck, how dare it blind me, I'm just like, they can't really help it. Their truck is the way that it is. They don't even necessarily know how bright it is. And instead of like blaming the person and getting angry, I focus on giving a positive explanation for why they're doing and not letting that experience of anger come in quite as much. Or like if somebody cuts me off, or they slam on the brakes, or they take a parking spot that I had mentally reserved for myself, I go, well, they're probably in a rush, or maybe they didn't notice me, or maybe they needed that spot that was closer because they have a kid or something in the back, and like having to walk through a whole parking lot is like really scary when you have a 3-year-old. So I get it. So in any case, that's what I try to do. And I try to do a similar thing with kink as well, where I practice building in a like automatic positive response to what other people are doing, if that makes sense. Like instead of thinking, oh wow, everyone else is going to do all these cool scenes I don't want to do, instead I'll think like, wow, it's really awesome, I get to watch all these people do all this fun stuff, or that's a great idea for later, I'm going to bookmark that for myself, or they seem like cool people, I hope they're having a fun time. And replacing that instant gut reaction of like jealousy, envy, anger, frustration, and instead trying to think about things that are positive. And like it's really hard, especially if you're somebody who's like got really well worn and like justified mental tracks. It's really hard to shift out of those. Like the deeper they are, the harder they are to get out of. But I think if you practiced at least a little bit of that, of getting more into that mindset of like positivity and understanding, compassion and community building, that makes it so much easier to deal with those things, because you're no longer emphasizing what you lack mentally. You're focusing on being happy for someone else, which is not the same thing as erasing the fact you don't have the things that you want to have, but you're not like stabbing yourself with it repeatedly unnecessarily. Like, you're aware of the things that you don't have. You're aware of the fact you're not playing as much as you want to. You don't have as many partners as you want to. Or you're not getting invited to whatever party. Like, that hurts. But there's no reason to take the knife out and re-stab yourself with the knife multiple times whenever the opportunity presents itself. You're aware it's there. Don't keep reminding yourself if it's not productive to do so, Sometimes you wiggle the knife around because you're like, oh, I should really take care of that. And it can be necessary to remind yourself, oh, I should take care of that at some point. I should really see if we can resolve this. But you don't need to, like, keep re-injuring yourself with the same negative, like, self-defeating talk over and over again, because it's not really serving any purpose. Yeah. Basically giving the others a benefit of the doubt. Yeah, I guess benefit of the doubt is, like, one way of doing it. It doesn't have to be that. It depends on what it is. But, like, just assume that like other people are not being assholes on purpose, or they're not doing something to like make you upset. They're just like living their lives. And like, I know when I drive, I've done things that other drivers have found really frustrating and confusing, right? Like if I'm driving in a new place I've never been to before, and I'm trying to make a left turn, but oopsie, I keep going past roads that are like right turn only, like I'm going to be kind of annoying as I slow down and read the sign and like, oh, can I turn there? No, I can't. And like have to keep going. Other people are going to get annoyed by that, but it is what it is. The LED lights are truly, I will say though, I hate the LED lights, but I understand. Okay. There is a little bit of that is like consumer led, of like consumers really love having big bright lights and really big giant cars because they feel safer in that, because they're not thinking in a community minded fashion of how their giant headlights affect everyone else around them, or how their giant like toddler destroying cars affect other people on the road. They just want to feel happy and safe for themselves. Feeling safe is not the same thing as being safe, also, for the record, because I don't think all of them are actually that safer or like safe at all, maybe, period. Anyways, just be like my dog. That's really it. All right, great questions so far. Let us keep going. Glad I got an opportunity to talk about that, because I love talking about. Yeah, I use that approach to Evie. It is called charity of interpretation. I like the actual formal name for that. I'm going to a play event with someone else for the first time. What conversations would be important to have in advance? Well, it depends. Are you playing together? Or are you going to be friends? I guess, okay. So briefly, number one, set expectations, right? Are you going to play together? Are you going as like a date? Are you going as like a we're friends supporting each other? Make sure that's really clear. Because if it's not, and you don't know each other super well, and you're just like casual acquaintances, that might not necessarily end well. 2, coordinate plans for the evening, right? Are you picking each other up? Who's driving who? How long do you want to stay for? Does anyone have like a hard out? Babysitter needs to be done at XY hour. Figure all that stuff out too as well. Coordinate outfit plans, right? Are you going to pack toys to play with someone else? If you're not going to be playing, is it okay if the other person plays? You know, what do you do about aftercare stuff, supporting stuff, social guidelines, right? Do you want to stick together the whole night? Do you want to be able to like just go together for support, but then pretty much be independent unless support is needed and then go find each other? Do you want to have something set up where it's like, okay, we're going to meet at this place, right? We're going to meet by the big curtain out front. We're going to meet under the clock at 9 p.m. and we're going to check in with each other, and we're going to see how we're both feeling, if we want to stay for longer, if one of us wants to go, if we want to try and coordinate a scene with somebody, that kind of thing. And yeah, I think that's more or less it. If you're going as like a couple or a date, or you want to play together, those are going to be their own negotiations, right? In terms of like, are we going to be together the whole night as a couple? Are we going to have any separate time? Do we just want to be focused on each other? I think that's something, as a polyamorous person, I definitely have learned over the years to be very specific about when I'm going to an event with partners, because there are events that I go to with a partner that there is an expectation that you're just focused on each other, and you're not there to like flirt with people, talk with other people to set up a spontaneous scene. And if there hasn't been a conversation that, oh yeah, of course I'm going to flirt with people, of course I'm going to have spontaneous scenes, of course I'm going to do whatever to whatever person, you should just know that. Like, don't ever make assumptions. Talk about it ahead of time. See where everyone's comfort level is at. And yeah, I think those are the big conversations I would have. Yeah, have a way to check in. Make sure you talk about your plans. And I mean, other than really having like a backup in case something falls through, somebody, you know, cancels last minute, gets sick, whatever. If you were planning on like, oh, well, that person was my ride, well, what are you going to do instead? Are you just going to not go? You're going to try to take a bus? Going to get an Uber? You know, figure out a backup plan. That's more or less it. I did not realize that charity of interpretation is the actual formal name. Fascinating. Andrew says, tried looking for dating advice. Do you have any sources for good advice? Because as soon as I type dating advice, oh no, I'm sure, I get swarmed with red pill trash. Thank you, and give Bendita a pet for me. Sometimes I literally, when I am home alone, I'm not kidding you, I will look at my dog like this, and I give her a little beam of love through my heart hands. That's what I do. Actually, that would be a really cute idea for an emote. would be like a rainbow heart laser eyes. Or just like a heart laser or something. Anyways, I'll have to write that down for later. But it is really hard to find good dating advice. I do know some people, I don't think either one of them's in the chat tonight, but I do know some people that are in the process of starting some dating advice channels. So I would like to at some point, there's a couple people I know that are getting started on maybe making YouTube content. When that happens, I will make a video that's like highlighting some of my favorite YouTubers, like who are my favorite recommended YouTubers. I mean, it's sort of my default. They don't really get into dating advice though. Like, I think Hannah Witten's probably talked a little bit about dating stuff. I really like my current sort of all-purpose favorite is, I always forget if it's Adkins or Atkins. I think it's Atkins. I want to make sure I'm sending you all to the right place. It's Atkins with a T. Mickey Atkins is my favorite. She, not of everything ever, but is like just overall good creator, mental health provider. So good in that regard, just off the bat. Does like reaction content, has a really great podcast with her spouse. Talks a lot about ADHD stuff as well and like social media. But she has a lot of stuff on there about dating and dating apps and meeting people. She's not a dating focused channel, but she does have a lot of stuff on there that I think is worth listening to. So if you're not like looking for anything that's like super just focused on dating advice, I know Mickey has quite a lot about it. And that I think is really exciting, and I enjoy that just because she just makes so much content about so many different things. So she's someone I really like content wise. Honestly, for dating stuff, I tend to like mostly read books. I don't tend to go to YouTubers because of the thing you ran into, which is like so many people are out there making like red pill Chad daddy dom alpha sigma male grind set advice about it's like every word put together of dating advice. I don't find it really to be helpful. It's like really hard to find good people. So I tend to read books. My favorite authors would be, and I'll just go ahead and put some in the chat just for names so you guys can like look them up. I'm gonna like copy and paste some names. So there is Alan Frizzetti. I think is how you pronounce it. I've never actually said it out loud before. Alan Frizzetti does a lot of like more DBT focused stuff. There's Terry or Terrence Real. I think he makes really good books, especially coming from like a male perspective. He's definitely like one of the ones I would look at immediately. There's John Gottman, who is like all-time classic. Can't go wrong with his books whatsoever. Maybe not necessarily super modern. So if you're looking for like modern, like how to use a dating app type dating advice, you're maybe not going to get that from Gottman. But overall, great books in any case. Let's see, is anyone else that's like good, like dating advice specifically? I think those are probably the three authors I'd look for. I mean, that's kind of like, that's a lot of books. Between those authors, there's at least like probably 5 or 6 books that are worth reading. And a lot of Gottman's work is more like marriage focused. So keep that in mind too. But a lot of the advice he gives, oh crap, I forgot about, I forgot. I knew I was forgetting. I was like, there was like a female author I really like. This is more like polyamory, but like Jessica Fern is also, I mean, that was easy to remember. Jessica Fern, her stuff is more poly focused, but it's very much based in like attachment theory. So if you jive with that, if you want to learn more about attachment theory, even if you're not polyamorous, I do think that Polysecure is worth reading from an understanding attachment perspective. Polyamory obviously makes it more complicated in different ways, but I think there's a lot in that book that is worthwhile as a read, regardless of if you're monogamous or polyamorous. So those are probably the people I'd recommend. I feel like you're going to have more luck with like published authors who are in mental health than like finding a YouTuber. But if anyone has a YouTuber that they think gives good dating advice, like feel free to fire them off. Yeah. Atkins is more common. You probably, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's also true too, right? Like if you're looking for casual or serious or mono or poly, or just like general dating advice, because there's a lot of books about polyamory, and that's like a whole other can of worms on top of it. But I really like Mickey. I think she's kind of the one I'd recommend for now. I don't really watch like a ton of like dating YouTube content. I watch stuff that's about like commentary on dating. I feel like that's like people that are talking about like the plight of dating apps or like casual sex. But it's not really advice. It's more like productive venting, which is its own genre. Yeah. The Multi-Amory podcast is great for having relationships, not on finding someone to date, but just on how to have healthy relationships. Oh yeah, there's tons of podcasts as well. Tons of podcasts. I do have Polysecure. That was a good book. I should reread. Yeah, I have a huge, like, I like Kindles because I like being able to export bookmarks. And I have, like, a ton of exported bookmarks from Polysecure specifically. I think it's always worth a reread for sure. Good question, though. Thank you, Andrew. All right, going back in the usual chat order, let us begin at the beginning because that's the best place to start. Hi everyone, Newbie here. I've been watching your lives for a few weeks and I love them. Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks for joining us. Can I get a hell yeah throw up the horns? You mean like this? Like, sure, hell yeah. Why not, baby? For once, that wasn't a request for a weird fetish thing, so I'm happy to oblige. Oh, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Looking for questions. You're the only live stream I've been watching. Everyone else is like whenever. Thank you. I've earned the privilege of being the regular view. I am definitely in the supporting role to Bandita's starring role. I make her I make her I'm her PA basically. I'm Bandit's PA. I also was hyped for the sleigh. It's gonna have to be another week, but you know, people get sick. I don't want to get sick. I got enough problems going on. Honestly, my allergies have been awful. I thought they were better, and they were better for a couple of days, but last night I was like, I don't know. I walked outside and I was like, it's such a beautiful day. I don't have any allergies. And I took a walk and then immediately started sneezing my head off. Like, I literally sneezed so long. And I've actually been to the point where now I've been wearing a disposable mask when I walk outside because I feel like that does actually help trap a lot of the pollen. But if I accidentally reuse a mask, can't do that because then all the pollen and it gets all stirred up. It's got to be a one and done, one use, single, disposable, directly in the trash. It does legitimately help, but I gotta be careful about the lingering allergens getting stuck in there. I suppose getting punched in the face repeatedly would be bad for dental health. It would be. I'll never forget. I had a guy who messaged me on FetLife in the very early days of my account, and he. This is how you know. This is like the moment where I was like, "Oh, anything can be a fetish," and somebody they messaged me and they were so direct. They wanted to know how much dental work I had done and how many fillings I had. And I was like, I've never had any work. Like I had braces, but I never had a filling before. I never had any cavities. And then they were like disappointed and stopped replying to me. And I was like, because this is before I had YouTube. I didn't realize that I could just like not give everyone that kind of information. Like I was like, oh well, it's impolite to not respond to a random DM. I don't want to leave the person hanging. I know better now. But I was shocked. I was like, wait, they were turned off because I had no dental work. There's something out there for everyone. I also hoped that pretty crystals would be involved. Is there a way? I mean, honestly, the only way I can think of to use crystals in BDSM would be like I mean, they're pointy. You could do a, like, having to kneel on, like, crystals or, like, tumbled rocks. You know, like, instead of doing the rice, you could do, like, go to one of those, like, rock tumbler things and get a bunch of those and have to kneel on those. That could be fun. Or you could use it as a sensation play tool. One of those, like, I don't know what the term for them is, but the ones that are, like, the actual, like, the bigger structure of crystal. You could use one of, like, a crystal. The word that keeps coming to my brain is tower. Or stalagmite. I don't know. Like, we have, like, a longer piece of crystal. You could also use that for sensation play. Like, that could be fun. It's kind of what I think. Having to lick and taste different types of rocks. Do some geologist roleplay. Don't do that with rocks you don't know, by the way. It's a good one. Some of them are very good for you. Using a real horse's bit as a mouth gag, bad idea. There are a lot of different types of horse bit. I'm gonna say pretty much all of them would be a bad idea. I do know people who use the edges of a horse bit for the like the part that's on your outer lips that goes like here, and then the inside middle part is like a regular ball, gag. But like the idea is the metal doesn't actually touch your teeth. It's just for like the aesthetic of it, and to like hold the thing in place. But no, I'd probably say don't put an actual horse bit in your mouth. That's probably a bad idea. Yes, do not yuck other people's yums. True. Respect other people's kinks, as long as, you know. I mean, even if somebody's like bratting at you non-consensually, you can tell them that you don't appreciate what they're doing without like being a hater. You know, just don't be a hater. That's like really it. Just like it's free to not be a hater. Have we all considered this? Maybe not. Wands? I guess so. I mean, I've heard them called that, but I'm like, is that like the proper like geologic term? I don't know. They have those crystal grid mats, maybe some kind of foreignophilia, objectification, laying on them out on someone. Oh, I can see that. Like people that are kind of more into like magical, like kink magics, like, you know, spirituality stuff. Yeah. You totally understand the teeth guy. I mean, some people get it. Could use a jade roller. I mean, don't spoil it. I have a video coming out soon on like more kinky DIY ideas. That might have been on the list. That might be something I talk about. Hi, Lexi. Glad you could make it. What's going on? Does anyone know? I don't know what Richie Blackmore is. Is that a person? I don't understand. I don't know what that means. I live in the most conservative state in America, Oklahoma. Is that objectively the most conservative state? How do you even measure that, to be honest? Due to that, there are 0 dungeons in my city. What do you suggest I do to find a kink or BDSM community? Well, let me look here. Well, I guess, isn't Oklahoma the place that, like, hired libs of TikTok to do something completely unnecessary? I know that there is a kink community in Nebraska, in Omaha. I know there's one there. What's close to you? I don't know. Well, I guess it depends. I know that there's stuff in Tulsa. And Dallas. If you can go to Dallas, there's a ton of stuff in Dallas. And I know some people that are from St. Louis, actually, that actually travel out, I think maybe to Kansas City to do stuff as well. So, like, there's stuff all over. It just depends on, like, how much you're able to drive. I know that it's like, probably more difficult to find things. I know the people I know that kind of live in that part of the country, there tends to be a lot more, like, private events. Like, you have to go to a munch and be vetted and then get invited. But it also depends how close you are to an actual big city. It's hard to find stuff, but let me actually look and see what your actual question was. What do you suggest you do to find kink or BDSM community? My guess is there's probably not going to be public dungeons, but there will probably be people who are hosting private events. So I would get involved, like online discussions, munches, other meetup groups like that. See if you can get involved that way. And I am confident, at least if you're near, again, a big enough city, there will be somebody who has a private dungeon. And in fact, just to put my money where my mouth is on this one, I will go to FetLife right now and I will look up Tulsa and see what I can find. I'm not going to actually share any names of any events, but I will just tell you if I find stuff that's like an actual like in-person thing. I don't know why I didn't know that like Oklahoma City was like a city. All right, let's look at events. All right, show me the big money. Oh no, there's stuff. I see some stuff in Tulsa. There's a couple of places actually. So if you haven't browsed on FetLife, I might give that a look again, because I don't know if maybe that's on the opposite side of the state from you, if it's accessible or not, but there's definitely stuff in Oklahoma. There's munches, meet and greet, cocktail night, potluck party, play parties, mass meetings. There's an educational place. There's like a cigar type event, it looks like. Sleepover party. There's even a rope lab. Yeah, there's definitely options out there. Whether or not it's ran by good people or has like a good reputation, I have no idea. But there's definitely things. There is a kink event tonight. I didn't go because I went to the GFA convention last weekend, still having major FOMO. Yeah, sometimes you gotta choose what's best for your body, even if it's not min-maxing every one of your social kink opportunities. Now, just for the sake of completeness, let's look at Oklahoma City. Let's see what's out there. There is definitely stuff in Oklahoma City as well. Not as many things. It does look like there is there's like private events happening. There's a men's only play party. There's some virtual stuff. It looks like there is one, I don't know how public it is, but it looks like there is potentially at least one dungeon in the Oklahoma City area. And like there's a power exchange thing. There's some weekend events happening. Some munches. So there's a rope bondage class coming up. There's some, beginner dungeon nights. There's a poker tournament. Ooh. So there's options. Whether or not any of those are actually like good events or if it's like primarily a swingers venue, I don't know. But there do seem to be some options. So maybe look on FetLife if you haven't already. Look for munches. Look for discussion groups. Go to them. And then you can be vetted to go to actual private play parties. They're probably more common. Sofa Bendita, very snoogled. Yes, please do not use jade eggs in your orifices. This should not have to be stated, but I will state it. That's a bad idea. Do not do. If you want to do that, I highly recommend glass. There's really nice, easy to find, high quality glass ones that are really nice, pretty, cute colors. But you don't have to worry about all the downsides that come with crystals. Ooh, welcome from Australia. Hi. Thanks for joining us. All right. There's one dungeon that's 2 hours away that isn't too trustworthy, in my opinion. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. Fair enough. But I would imagine if the next closest dungeon is not very trustworthy, there are other people with that opinion and they probably do host something privately. Or you do the alternative route, which is instead of focusing on like maybe going to a regular event every, week or every month or something, you focus on doing social stuff that's maybe more local to where you are, and then you travel to go to like a bigger convention or like a dungeon weekend or something, maybe once every couple months or, maybe once or twice a year, which is like crappy, but I think it's better than traveling for 2 hours to go to an untrustworthy dungeon and then like have a bad experience. Do you know of any kink-aware crisis resources? I guess it depends on what you mean by crisis. Not in the sense of like replacement for emergency services. Not in that sense. In an emotional sense, maybe. There may be some resources through the National Coalition for Sexual Freedom. If what you're looking for is like crisis management, I need to talk to somebody, there are definitely hotlines you can call that are like kink friendly, that if part of your issue is like I need to talk about like my kink relationship, I imagine a lot of the like LGBT like service lines would be familiar with that. But not anything that's like specifically branded for kink that's like a hotline or something that you could call, unfortunately. That's what I mean. Woo. Those allergies, baby. I missed the answer to the viewer dating question. What's up? Oh, shoot. I don't know if I have time to repeat what I asked. Nothing much, I guess is what I'll say. As I get older, my play gets less physical, a lot more mental, less choking and drugs, and more hypnosis and attitude training. I love attitude training. I haven't heard it called that before, but I like that concept of like, we're not doing behavioral adjustments, we're attitude training. I like that. That's a good way of framing it. 90 minutes is about the limit for me. Like, yeah, if I had to drive to a dungeon, especially if I was driving myself, if it was a Saturday or a Sunday, I would drive probably like 75 minutes would be it. But if it was for like a special event, like if it was like a seasonal, like a big party, like a Halloween thing or something, I would drive 90 minutes. But I really love it if I didn't have to drive and I could just like take a train and then like, you know, rent a bike or something. Sadly, not really a thing, at least not in this part of the world, but other people have that privilege, I suppose. Yep, a lot easier to do the studies when the activities are legal and destigmatized, for sure. Cumulative traumas are very, very hard to study, as by definition, the window of a study is long, so you have to focus on things like when do things not completely heal. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty special, but that's not always a good thing. Yeah, yeah, sometimes. Totally agree. Bearing emotions never turns out well. They will reemerge at the most inopportune time. Yes, that's part of why I think just saying like, I shouldn't feel bad, I should feel happy. Like, your brain's gonna hold on to that and be like, we're still upset, we didn't really deal with it. For me, the main issue is that I think having easy access to partners would make my life uniformly better versus just different with its own set of challenges. Yes. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that I'm the kind of person where my life is better when I have a partner or partners, or I have like a regular group of friends, for sure. And honestly, I think most people in life as human beings benefit from having like either a partner or close friends or some combination of that, and not having it can be really like painful and upsetting. And like I'm surprised that there's like not like dating apps have really been a blessing and a curse, because it does make it easier to find people in a lot of ways, but then there's so many people, it's just so easy to get lost in the shuffle of everything. Yeah. And I think that there's definitely an age prime for that. Like, I don't really think that the young Zoomers are like really on dating apps very seriously. I think if you're like 25 to like 38, I think that's like the prime age to be in a dating app. Like, you're going to find a lot of people that are similar to you, a lot of people that are not just like on there to like see what's out there and like browse and be funny, like people that are seriously looking for relationships. But if you're older, like if you're like 45 plus, like a lot of people are like married or never really got onto dating apps because they met the old fashioned way, right? So your number of choices for somebody in a similar age cohort is like much more limited. How about celebrate the fact that others are able to find and maintain partners, which is where I'm at, though I am looking to get the dungeon I've joined to have some taster parties. Yes, taster parties. That's a great idea. I think all of that sounds like a really good, healthy mindset. I don't really like telling people, oh, just like have a positive mindset. Oh, like just choose to be happy. Because I don't think that's helpful for people. I think it's okay to recognize that like you're experiencing emotions and they're negative and they're real and it's for legitimate reasons and that's okay. You can consciously redirect things for the benefit of like not hurting yourself repeatedly with these negative emotions while still acknowledging that they're there. I think having taster parties is also a really good way to meet people. Just general like speed dating events too, matchmaking stuff, right? I think I find that to be really helpful. Maybe not for like partners, but for meeting people that I wanted to, just learn more about and just maybe be friends with. And that's been really great. 100% people who present and contribute to their community is important in the DPS world of human services. Yeah. That's like a funny way of phrasing it, actually. I totally agree that finding a good mention events is key. Another issue is that it's hard to not see things as a scarce resource. Yes. Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's like so many more subs than there are DOMs anyways that I think like, I mean, that's sort of a thing of, getting into, okay, well, we know what the reality is. And like literally we have studies about this. There are way more people who want to be submissive than people who want to be dominant. And not every dominant is poly with 5 submissive partners. They're not all like cornering the market on submissives. So the numbers are actually in your favor if you're a dominant or a top and you can't find a partner. There are way more people who want to be submissive or at least want to like play with somebody who's dominant versus, the other way around. I went to a general munch for the first time last week. I sat at a table, introduced myself, but didn't connect, so I went to a table of younger people, did the same, but there was nobody talking to me. Everybody gradually left until it was just me and one other person. We talked a bit, but eventually they said I had joined the trans table. Oh, they got like, what is this, high school like lunch hour? What's happening here? Then they left too and said they'd be back, but I just left anyway. Should I have noticed everybody at the table were trans? And if I had, should I have not joined the table? I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think I've ever had an interaction with somebody that was like, actually, you joined this group and you're not allowed to be here. Like, I don't think I've ever been to a munch that's like distinct segmented groups of like, outside like friend groups, right, that are very mixed. Of like, this is the table for the ace people, this is the table for the trans folk, this is the table for the youngins, this is like, that seems very like high school cafeteria. That seems very like hanging out around the canteen. Oh, you got to make sure you go to the right table or else you're going to get bullied. Like, that sounds real bad. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Oh, gosh, that makes me feel really bad. I mean, to me, that sounds like if you have the option, I would try going to a different munch. I've definitely been to munches where I don't connect with people and, like, the vibe is wrong, and I haven't gone back to them. Like, I've gone to munches before they just, like, make me feel weird, and I'm like, oh, I don't like this. But I know enough to know that not every munch is like that, and I just, like, try a different one and see if I like those people or that environment or the setup of the munch, right? Anything where people are getting segmented into tables and being like, I'm not supposed to be at this table, like, that really defeats the purpose of a munch to me. If you have something that's more like educational focused, like a discussion group, a book club, something like that, I think that might be easier to like integrate on because you're there for a very specific purpose and not just like general wanton socializing. They didn't even mention it until everyone had left. Yeah, that's just like fucking weird. Like, I get it if it's like the munch is really big, they've like overgrown a couple of tables, and they like intentionally segment it for different interest groups. And then you walk in and you're new, and then the guy with the lanyard or whoever walks up to you and is like, oh, hey, you seem new. Have you been here before? And you're like, no, I haven't. It's my first time. I'm like, oh, well, great. Nice to meet you. So the way that we do things here is, as you can see, we're really full. So we tend to divide things up into different interest groups. So over here we have this group and that group. I can go over and introduce you to some people if you want to meet some folks, yada, yada, yada. And I feel like that is the bare minimum that munch organizers should be doing. given I mostly have gone to munches that are ran by TNG groups, and so they tend to be very proactive about like involving people and like kind of being a welcome wagon of like, hey, here's a new person, they want to talk, be nice to them. Whereas more general munches have not always been that way. But I don't know, people are like, you gotta remember, the kink community, for better or for worse, is full of nerds. Maybe not people with the best social skills or acumen. And so they may ignore or not recognize people that don't feel familiar, people they don't know. And it's because they don't know better and they are like prioritizing themselves over helping other people feel included. But not every munch is going to be that way, nor will every event organizer be that. The word lazy comes to mind. I don't know if I want to slap that label on them, but yeah. Twixie says, you sat at the trans table, take your cross-sex hormones or GTFO poser. Yeah, exactly. I just, like, oh God, I believe that it happened, but like at the same time, it's like, I mean, I guess I don't know that it's a private party. Like, I'd feel bad about that. Like, if I went to a table and then somebody later was like, hey, you joined a group, you're not part of the group. Like, if somebody told me, like, this is the gay men's table, and I sat down, and I was just like, why did everyone just seem nice? Somebody was wearing a Bluey t-shirt. I didn't know. I just wanted to talk about pet play, and that's what I heard you guys talking about. I didn't know. You know? I'd feel bad about it, but it's funny. People get very, very worried about that. TNG stands for the next generation. It is, generally speaking, kink events for people between 18 and 35, most commonly munches, but also discussion groups, play parties, taster events, so on and so forth. Now, I did see a super chat that I missed because I was answering a question while it came in, so I'll get to it next. Top 3 dating apps. Top 3, OkCupid. Number 1, especially if you've never used it before, high quality profiles, lots of text on there, like how transparent they are about like the algorithm and like matching you with people that are like similar to you match wise. Depending on how you use it, it can be more or less focused on the picture portion of things. There are definitely kinky folk on there, and there are definitely polyamorous folk, but then obviously like monogamous folk, ace folk, poly folk, queer folk, all different kinds of folk are on OkCupid, and it's especially really good, again, if you're in that, like, slightly, like, mid-20s to, like, 30s demographic. I think if you're in that window, you're gonna have people on there. If you're younger, if you're, like, 21 or younger, or you're, like, older than 50, OkCupid maybe not the right place for you demo-wise, but for people in that kind of, like, late 20s, mid-20s onward, it's pretty good. 2 is Field. Field, more location-based, so people that are close by you, that is generally how they sort things. More picture-focused. Definitely, for a lot of people, more sex-focused, but not entirely. A lot more openness about kink on there as well. I've definitely matched with people both on OKC and on Field, and they are much more explicit about kink in their Field profiles than on OkCupid, which is understandable. So I would look at that as an option, but you're going to get people that are a lot more sex focused, and or you're going to see like more blank profiles, not maybe as high quality matches as you would on OkCupid by default, but it's a smaller, more niche app, so it definitely has its place. And then 3, I mean, I don't even really use a third app. I mean, I would probably not recommend Tinder. I know that some people really like Bumble, but whenever I used it very briefly, and what I've heard from like men who use it, they've told me it's like mostly like religious women that want to like get settled down and marry very quickly, which like maybe is your thing. So like if you're looking for like a serious like marriage relationship, that might be a good one for you. And Hinge. Hinge is another option. Haven't really used that. I think it's basically like Tinder, maybe a little bit less on the sexy hookup side. But I don't know if anyone has any experiences with apps that they enjoy. I only ever really use OkCupid and Field, so I very quickly eliminated using most other dating apps, just within like a little bit of knowing about them. Just be ready to get a ton of spam likes on OkCupid. The filters aren't that great. Oh, I guess I only really look at people that I match with. So if you're looking at people who like you, that is for sure a thing. I tend to mostly just like people and then message them if I like them enough to want to start a conversation. So that's usually how I do things. So like leave a comment on a photo or something like that. Yeah, there's definitely options. Oh my gosh, wow. Okay, it is almost 7:30 here. Thank you all so much for all of your wonderful questions. I really appreciate it. Let us continue. Okay, give me one moment here. I'll just check on. There we go. Okay, just wanted to make sure I got. See how we're looking here. I didn't even check I didn't even look at my bit rate, and I was like, well, maybe I should. Maybe I should do that. I pray for a day when my email inbox is not full of spam, fake sponsorship offers. Anyways. Thanks again. I do have Field, but I haven't really done anything with it in 2 years. I mean, if you haven't used it in years, I would definitely check it again. You never know what's out there. I tend to alternate. I tend to focus, not intentionally as like this is my plan, but like probably for like, you know, a bit. I usually have a routine. Normally kind of like the beginning of spring, I'll maybe be on OkCupid for a while. I'll use it for maybe a month or two. Then I'll use Field for a little bit. Then I'll get off the dating apps for a while. And then like kind of like late fall, I'll maybe get on like OkCupid again, test it out for like a couple weeks. I try not to like focus heavily on using like dating apps all of the time, because I am a woman. The way that I use dating apps is probably different than how men use them. I know a lot of men whose technique is literally just like matching with as many people as possible, regardless of the quality of the match, and even if it's like a real or a fake profile. Like I definitely know like those alpha male guys, right? They'll brag about having like, I have 100,000 Tinder matches, and it's like, and how many of those were real people versus bots? How many of those were real people? The answer remains unknown. So you may have to be more active consistently. I just find that if I let like, this feels like a weird way to talk about actual human beings, but like if you let this stock replenish, I feel like it's more enjoyable to use it when you're not like constantly seeing the same profiles over and over again, and like not seeing people who interest you because like you've sorted through the people who are the most interesting right off the top of the bat, right? Field has been really hit or miss for me. Didn't really find many people who do parties. Better for solo play partners, but that's just my experience. Yes. I mean, on any dating app, I found very few people on dating apps that are like regular public participants in the BDSM community on any dating app. And on Field, for sure, you get a lot more people that are more focused on like private play, usually in the bedroom. But yeah. Yes, good pictures. Yes, if you can like, there are people who even do like Tinder and like dating app photo shoots. I've never used one before, but especially if you're not somebody who goes out and gets a photo taken regularly, like you're not one of those people who does a lot of selfies, great opportunity to get like, hey, we're going to go spend a day downtown. We're going to take some photos at like a coffee shop, library, outside, doing activities you enjoy, photo with your dogs or your pets or whatever. I think that's really good to do. Not necessarily super expensive. Hi Evie. I found this site that seems to have some good reviews. Being in the early 60s, I'm curious if you know anything about my brain went senor. the senior BDSM dating site. No, I don't know anything about that. I've never heard of it before. Basically anything that's not a mainstream dating app is like instantly suspect to me. I know that when you're older, it's harder, and there are more options if you're like a gay man that are more, maybe like catered to that, but I've never heard of it before. I can't say for sure or not if it's like a scam site, but anything that is like marketed to like older people, like anyone that's like, if its primary market demographic is like 50 plus, I instantly get worried that it's like trying to scam people that like don't know how the modern internet works. But Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could. I'm gonna just do a little incognito window here. Let's look at what I can probably give you a read initially. Okay, well, it's members only login, so I can't really see anything. I can't. Everything's blurred on safe search. I don't see. It does not have good Trustpilot reviews. It's got the 2.5, 3 stars. So the 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is fascinating. So it has 5 1-star reviews, but it has 2.5 stars on Trustpilot. So I'm gonna say this looks like a scam, but I will also say that FetLife has 2.5 star reviews ish. Which is like kind of crazy. Oh my god. Okay, wait. I'm scrolling and like, why is FetLife why is it getting reviewed so badly? Like, what's happening? Here's the first 1-star review. It's a really negative review, but Trustpilot seems to like websites, ... Been an off and on again member since 2011. It's always been off in the political spectrum. Last 4 years has become nothing except a Me Too and BLM platform. Have had 3 accounts in the last month deleted simply for stating I am a white heterosexual male. That's all I did, and the system auto-deletes them within 8 hours of creation. Oh, Jesus Christ. The rest of it, I don't even know how to make out the rest. Like, they accuse, like, female users of, like, being words I can't repeat on youtube.com. Because they're mad that there's people on this website who are selling services, which isn't even, like, technically allowed on the website. It's just liberal political activists. It's intimidating as can be. And not being on it actually improves one's sense of well-being. Oh my goodness. That is so funny. I'm so glad I read that. They also accuse some staff of like running some other account for nefarious reasons. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. But if anything, that's like a glowing endorsement for me. Wow. Okay, this is why it has bad reviews. Somebody gets their account permanently suspended, probably because he said something really racist, and then when they detect that you've made an account using the same IP that you did before, they auto-delete your account. It's not because you're a white heterosexual man. It's because you are ban evading, my dude. This is like pretty much how all modern this is how Twitch works. This is how YouTube works. If you get banned and they catch you trying to evade a ban, they're gonna fucking delete you again. That's how it works. The next negative review after that, it says half the women have some emotional disorder or autistic. Like, okay, buddy. I'm sure that you are, it's crazy. Rather spend your time on Tinder. Yeah, well, it's not a fucking dating website. You fucking freak. Like, that's crazy. It's funny, because then it's like, then you have somebody else that's like, they're allowing the website to be filled with TERFs. So like, which is it? Is it ran by a liberal BDSM, liberal BLM activist, or is it an actively transphobic website full of TERFs that's being overtaken by the far right? Who's to say? Everyone hates it equally. Oh, goodness gracious. My goodness. It's a funnel site. The idea is just to make a bunch of sites. All goes into the same pool. They're pretty much useless. Yeah. Wow. That's something else. I at least figured the Christian dating sites were legitimate. That's very, very funny. Okay. Well, I had my laugh for today. I gotta have a little humor every once in a while when somebody, like, that's so funny. They're just mad that, like, oh no, I have to, like, This is just, okay. Anyways, I don't know what's going on there. All right, let's get back to some questions. How's my dog go? Oh, she's not on camera. There we go. She's so sleepy. We talked about answer to that question. Yep, we have a pre-existing thing. We were planning on playing together. Okay. If you are planning on playing together and you're going to an event together, I definitely, before you go to the event, I talk about, like, if you want to play with anyone else that night, if you want to have time for pickup play, what time during the evening you want to play, how do you want to play, you know, just the general types of scene negotiations that you would do, and then talk about, like, okay, afterwards, do we want to have aftercare? Do we want to hang out? Do we want to leave as soon as our scene is done? What time in the evening do we want to do our scene? You know, that was like the kind of things I'd probably think about before getting to the event, outside of like the usual negotiations. If I'm a lesbian and an ABDL, how do I go about finding a partner because it feels impossible? I feel like I know quite a number of like trans lesbians that are into ABDL, like specifically. I feel like that's like, I'm not going to say it's a thing, but I feel like it's definitely like, it's not a thing. It is possible. I think if like, well, I guess I don't know. I don't really know a lot about like lesbian dating specifically, other than like the apps, right? I know like the apps that get used for that, but not like ABDL stuff. I do know quite a number of people that have ABDL relationships with like a mommy dom and a little girl, but I don't really know how they found that. I don't know how they found each other as partners. I feel like it would probably be through like meetup groups, discussion groups, online groups that are focused on like CGL, ABDL, that whole wheelhouse, and trying to meet people through there. And even if you don't meet somebody through that directly, maybe you'll meet somebody who knows somebody that would be interested. And that's like how a lot of people meet partners in the kink scene, is like you go to an event, maybe you're really into pet play, you go to a pet play event, you meet somebody, you make friends, you hang out, you talk. They go, oh, wow, actually, you're looking for a partner. Well, I have this friend who's also really into the kind of pet play that you're in. Let me introduce you. And then that's how you meet somebody. Yeah, making friends, being involved in the community, pretty much the universal answer for meeting people most of the time. She is adapting. She does have a very perfect camouflage. Yeah. She's so funny. All right. See you later, Lexi. Have fun. Yes, it's very much kinky Facebook. It is not intended to be a dating site. And if you give FetLife 1 stars because you can't randomly message every hot girl and expect them to interact with you, it's like, whenever I message a girl, she wants me to pay her. But it's like, no, because she's not fucking here. She's not here to give some strange man she doesn't know sexual attention. That's why. It's because you're messing with her whole vibe. All right, scrolling. Talking about studies. Yes, Polysecure is a really good book. Do recommend that one. Oh, shoot. I keep losing where I am in the chat, and I have to scroll back. Okay, I am looking for... Okay, here we go. I think I found myself again. Talking about podcasts. What are great places to meet other kinky people? I'm struggling with finding a healthy partner who enjoys kink. Well, we talked about OkCupid and Field being the best dating apps to meet people. I think in general, the best way to meet people is to find local events on FetLife, because if you meet somebody participating in the local kink community, there is usually a higher standard of interest involved versus saying you like kinky sex on a dating profile, right? So I like meeting people that way. I recommend looking for social events. That could be a book club, discussion group, movie watch party, speed dating events, taster events, high protocol dinners. Well, probably not a high protocol dinner specifically. Maybe like some other kind of like dinner party type situation, or something that's like more focused around a social aspect as opposed to a play aspect. And most places, at least if you're in the US, most places you will be within like 1 to 2 hours of a nice dungeon or somewhere that's at least worth checking out. Maybe not something you can go to like all of the time, but at least would be worth maybe like the next time you have a free weekend and you're like, you know what? I'll go drive up there. I'll crash with a friend. I'll get a hotel room or just like tough it out and drive back home after and I'll see how it goes. And that can be a good way to meet people. But that would be what I would recommend. I've heard about it, but I'm nervous to go to one. I mean, I think that munches are the best place to start. I think they can be intimidating because not every munch is going to be the right munch for you, but don't feel pressure to stay. I recommend, again, like I talked about earlier, finding one that has some kind of constructive activity connected to it. I live in a bigger city, so there's so many munches here, right? Like you go to a munch that's at like a pinball arcade or like like a place that allows you to smoke cigars, or a place there's like boot blacking, or a place that has a discussion group, or like a pub quiz night, or a million other things, karaoke. And you can go and you can enjoy the social aspect, but because there is also this constructive activity, you can also do at the same time. It's not just having to show up and talk to people. You can show up and do karaoke. You can show up and do puzzles. You can show up and do pinball. You don't have to just do the talky part. And I think that can take the edge off of like needing to be nervous about it. I think going earlier is also better. I think it's a lot harder to walk into a munch an hour in when everyone's already kind of like settled into their conversations versus like showing up right when it starts and like being able to break into the conversations before they really like get taking off. But that would be like out of anything, if you're going to go to one event, I'd probably go to a munch first if you haven't been to anything else before. In general, how open to neurodivergence is the kink community? For example, because I miss social cues, I tend to stay silent rather than risk being the annoying person that's hyper. I mean, it depends. Some places are going to be less friendly than others. Every individual community is different. I would say there is a very large percentage of our community that is neurodivergent. A lot of people that have ADHD, a lot of people who are autistic, a lot of people that have other flavors of neurospicy beyond that as well. So you will certainly not be alone. I have also occasionally seen munches and events that are catered specifically to neurodivergent people. That might be more up your alley, but it's not going to be anything that people haven't dealt with. If you tell someone, like I really recommend if you're going to be new and you're going to a munch, if you can, message the organizers or like talk to them in person at the event and like let them know, hey, I'm new. I'm kind of more of a shy person. I'm not like super talkative maybe. What's the best way for me to get involved? Can you help introduce me to people when I get there? If that's something that you want to have help with doing, at least that would be what I would look at. So that is how I would handle that personally. And if you can find a place that's more catered to neurodivergent folk, I will also say this just to give us a moment to talk about this. There is a conference that is coming up at the end of this month. It's actually really soon. And it's called ThriveCon, Thrive Virtual Conference. And it starts on the 26th technically, but like the full classes don't pick up until like Saturday morning, depending where you live. It's online, it's free, and it's all focused on mental health and neurodivergence within BDSM, right? Like there's stuff about like autism, anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, general neurodivergence, DID, different panels and support groups and power exchange, and talking about service and sadism and age play and just so many things. So if you would maybe like to connect with some people that are neurodivergent and maybe get some more direct answers from folks that are neurodivergent, you can definitely check out the panels for that. Again, it's free. And they're all across the spectrum on there, all across the spectrum of different things on there. Yeah, so I would look at that. That might be also a good resource as well for connecting with people online. And then maybe like, hey, I'm neurodivergent. I'm this way. I'm that way. How has anyone else who's dealt with this maybe like met people, got involved in the community, found a partner, etc. And they'd probably be able to tell you some really good answers there. So ThriveCon, end of April, online conference, free, open to anybody. I think they mostly do it through Zoom. I've gone to it twice, I think. I think I missed a year in there somewhere, but this is like their third or their fourth year, and it's good. Highly recommend. I highly recommend a newbie munch if your area has one. Yes, also true. I was so nervous before I went to my first one, but knowing most were all new like me really helped. Yes, if you have a munch in your area that is focused for new people, even TNG as well, though that's not necessarily newbie focused because you can be 30 and go to TNG and like not be new. But those are really good munches to go to if you're newer because those are going to be a little bit more like hands-on and involved typically compared to the more general munches where it's like mostly the same people going every single week. I have not read Polywise yet, but it is on my list. The shape that's long in one direction is called prismatic. Oh, thank you. Now I know. My phone's mad at me because I haven't been walking. It's like, you haven't moved in this many minutes. Get up and move. And I'm like, be quiet. Be quiet. It's upset at me for doing my job. All right, we have enough time here to get to a couple more questions, I think. I'm just scanning through and looking for stuff here. Talking about crystals. Oh no, you missed getting to go to your event. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I've definitely done that before. I've put it on like the wrong month or something, but the right day, or like 1 week instead of the other. Yeah, been there, done that. Do you guys ever go through vanilla spells where you just aren't into BDSM for a while and then you go back to it? Yes, that is very common, Kat, especially if you are in like a more like lifestyle 24/7 relationship. A lot of people have ebbs and flows, and like what an ebb and flow means for different couples is going to be different because like some people their everyday is like super high protocol, and so when they have an ebb like their low point is like other people's normal everyday amount of doing like a DS relationship. So like some people have stuff where they're still like pretty kinky even when they have ebbs, but other people they come because there's like life obligations, work stuff, kids, travel, sick parents, elderly parents, whatever. And so they get very involved in that. And so they're maybe not doing as much kinky stuff. But it's very, very, very common, both for individual people and for couples to go through times when they're more or less vanilla. And like I've had that too. Like I've had relationships before that started out like very kinky and very kink focused. But then over time, either through like living together or just the amount of time we spent together, the more vanilla aspects of a relationship came through and were more prominent every day versus the kink. The kink was always still there, but maybe it wasn't always the focus, right? I think it's normal and natural to like come back. I think for some reason we've painted this picture to people that you have to be like, if you're kinky, that means you're kinky like all the time and like always doing kinky stuff like every weekend, every month. You're always out there looking for events and doing things. And that's not going to be true either because of the cost, time investment, desire level, any of that. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Very normal. I know a lot of kink people go through those phases. I haven't gone through one yet, but it happens. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say that everyone goes through one or it has to happen or it's a given. But if it does happen, it's really common. Definitely good to take a break. I go to a weekly play party, but haven't gone for 2 weeks just because mentally I wasn't having a good time. Not sure when I'll be back. Yes, I think especially if you're like not, okay, this is like, when I say you're not feeling it, I don't mean like stop obeying your rules as a submissive, because it just seems like it's too hard that week. Like, I'm not saying to do that, but listen to your body. If you need a break, if you're starting to develop a more negative relationship with like going to events, if they stress you out, if you feel like other things in your life should or need to be a priority, choose those other priorities. That can include just like taking a break to rest, or like catching up on housework, or doing some gardening, or because it's such a lovely sunny weekend, going for a hike or camping instead of going to the kink party. That's totally legitimate. And like, I think having those breaks and time periods off make the kink better, because you're reminded of the fact that you're actively choosing to do kink, and it's not just like a habit you're doing because it's a habit. It's a thing you're doing because you like it and you want to do it, not just because it's like the done thing, right? Like, getting pizza for lunch is like fun when you do it, because it's like, wow, I get to have pizza for lunch. I'm an adult. I get to do that. It's fun and amazing. When you have pizza by default every single day for lunch for years and you never deviate, it might start to be kind of sad and kind of boring, even if you really like pizza. And taking a break and doing something else for a bit and then coming back to pizza is like going to help you enjoy having the pizza more. That's just math. That's just how the math works, baby. That's the plain and simple truth. Is it a bad idea to move in with other ABDLs as my first move out of my parents' house? Or is that jumping in too fast? I mean, if you don't know them, that probably would be a bad idea. I would not move in with strangers if you can help it, even if they share your kink. If they're people you know and you hang out, you're good friends, you want similar things out of a roommate scenario, I think that could be perfectly fine. But if it's just like people who say they're ABDLs online and you want to go move in with them, I would probably not do that. That would probably be a bad idea. Basically, any relationship that's like, I'm kinky and they want me to move in with them because they have a house and they want me to like help them out around the house and be like a house submissive, that's probably not a good scenario to be in as a young person who's like relatively new to kink and adulthood at the same time. Yeah. I've known many a story of somebody who's like either tried to find, or they've been the other person who's like moved into somebody's house as like a house submissive type situation, and like hasn't always gone very well. I gotta be honest, not something I'd recommend offhand. It can be a really fun fantasy that I'm sure you could roleplay doing for a long weekend with some trusted people. But if you're answering a FetLife group post that's like, hi, our names are Barbara and Stan. We've been in a live-in 24/7 total power exchange MS relationship for 20 years, and we're looking for a new submissive to share and to break in to do stuff around the house for us. And in exchange, you will get free room and board in the garage and, whatever other list of obligations and expectations. Don't do that, probably. I'm not going to tell you can't do it, but I'm going to tell you really probably shouldn't do that. Because if that dynamic's going to work out, it's going to be between people who already really know each other, not like a random stranger they met basically through like Craigslist, essentially. It's essentially the same as meeting a stranger on Craigslist. All right, let's get to maybe one more question here if we have time. Yeah, everything was great until the woke mob rebranded brat taming as attitude training. I only said attitude training because I couldn't think of the right term, but I think I'm keeping it. Yeah, I'd keep it. I'm putting that on the back burner. I like it. It's a fun term. All right, I think I answered this one about website. There are more subs than doms. I didn't know that. Yes. Generally speaking, there are more subs than doms. I think kind of regardless of gender configuration. There are definitely way more male subs than female dominants. And there's still more female subs than male dominants, but the disparity isn't as bad. I think it goes from like 90-10 to like 70-30. You know, somewhere around there. Maybe like 60-40. Because also, have to mind, a lot of people who say they want to be doms or they want to be dominant really just want to do like bedroom play. And they don't really actually know what being a dominant even like is or means. So, plus also studies that look at that kind of tend to lump in like dom and top and sadist all together in like one category, and I think that also like maybe makes the numbers more. But yeah, from everything I've seen, there's always like more subs than doms, pretty much always. Yes, I mean the big problem with doms is like getting the experience to be recognized. Yeah. We had a fundraiser and held a biting booth that was a crazy success. I love that, a biting booth. I said success, weird. I meant to say success. I apologize. I love that. That's perfect. A biting booth. Delightful. I've been dozing off and will take the chance to say thank you for the stream. You're so welcome. Thank you. I think you answered what TNG stands for already. Can you find play partners on field people to play with at parties? Yes. You may not find people, like, at least depending on where you live, you may not find people that are, like, regulars at an event to you already, but you will definitely find people that are open to the experience. I've met quite a few people through field that are, like, maybe not involved with the community to start with, but when they find out about it, they're like very curious about it. And like most of the time they want to do it, but they don't really know how to find it or like which parties to go to or like how to meet people that want to go there themselves. And like being the person who already knows the event or like wants to go and can be that initiator is really helpful. But yeah, definitely you can find play partners. I find more play partners through field than I have through OkCupid, at least for like people who want to go to events and like that's the nature of our relationship. How good field is, I think, really depends on where you live. I think some areas of the country have a lot bigger of a user base for field than others. I feel like around here it's got a pretty good user base, but I don't think it's like, it's not popular enough yet to like universally be good. But yeah, it's like the app experience itself is like kind of meh. I found good people through it, and I think it's like the best for explicitly finding like polyamory, open relationships, kink, but like could definitely still majorly improve for sure. Final question here. I just started putting myself out there again after my divorce. Congratulations on putting yourself out there. I'm speaking to a guy now and he's vanilla, but I want to teach him about BDSM, but I feel uneasy about a new dom. What do I do? Well, I guess what it really comes down to is he down for that? Like, does he want to be a dom, or is he curious about BDSM? And like, if you want to teach him, does he want to learn? That's, you know, we got to figure that out first. So I'd probably say I would open up the conversation of like, I'm curious about exploring kink. I'm wondering how you feel about that. And just be open about the fact that you're uneasy about like maybe having a new dominant partner or like somebody to play and do BDSM with, even if not necessarily a dom. And you can talk about that together and like go through like, okay, well, why are you uneasy? Is it connected to your old relationship? What does that mean? And I think if it's the right person for you, they will be okay with that and they'll want to like pace an exploration and be like, hey, I'm also totally new. I don't really know anything. We're not really going to do anything that extreme. Let's just like explore together, read some stuff together, get some ideas. And then when it feels right and safe for both of us, then we'll actually start doing it. And I feel like if you're focusing on more of the shared experiences, education, bonding aspect of it, you will hopefully build a level of trust as they are learning as you're going together, you know, watching movies together, listening to podcasts, talking about things you read in a book, things that sound really hot and interesting, you'll find that the anxiety and unease over having a new dom will like fade away. Instead of like, you know, having that, you'll now have excitement over like, ooh, there's this new person I get to play with. And you also don't have to have a dom, right? Like you just like have someone to play with who's like a top that you're exploring with. You don't have to immediately get back into power exchange if that doesn't feel right to you. So like, just stick on what feels positive and good for both of you, and not on like achieving something because you think that like that's what you're supposed to be doing. Yes, there's a small book titled When Someone You Love Is Kinky. I recommend that book. Yes. I think it's a little bit outdated, but that is still a good resource for sure. If you think that this is the best way to get yourself out of that situation, you feel safe with this person, yeah, then go for it, yeah. All right, well, that all being said, thank you so much for watching. See Miss Bendita staring at me very intently. It is time for us to go and feed the Bendita dinner. I know. It's going to be time to go soon. She knows. All right, thank you all so much for joining me on this Friday evening. Hopefully you all have an amazing weekend. Stay safe. Drink some water, and I will talk to you all again